Well, hello again, everybody. This is John Norris at Trading Perspectives. As always, we have our good friends Sam, Clement, and Courtney Trust. Y'all say hello.
How's it going?
Hey, John.
Hey, guys. You know, right now we're sitting here through one of the hottest summers I can easily remember in central Alabama, just as hot as all blazes. You can only imagine what it's like elsewhere. And the thing is, I've read so much. Courtney has got family members who live over in the United Kingdom, easily talking about some of the hottest summers that they've had there. And if Lord knows, maybe recorded history, Europe is having a drought, heat wave, all that stuff. Meanwhile, energy production across the globe is either stagnant or falling. We're on the brink of a major global energy crisis, all of this bad stuff. And Sam, what does it mean for American investors and maybe European investors leading into a potentially cold, dark winter?
Yeah, I think it is probably going to be a cold winter. Doesn't the Farmer's Almanac call for a cold winter this year?
Actually, I did read that the Farmer's Almanac called for a cold winter this year.
So maybe it's cold for investors as well.
Well, I mean, it's all depends because, you know, from what I read on CNN today, seems as though Warren Buffett has drastically continues to increase his overall allocation to U.S. dollar and domestic investments relative. I mean, that would have to be almost by definition at the exclusion of the European, and it's hard to make a strong case. And this is where probably we should have some sort of caveat or whatnot about any decisions you make based off this podcast you do on your own volition, all that stuff. But it's hard to make a case for a strong overweight, in my estimation, to European securities when Europe right now is really sitting on the precipice of a major energy crisis leading into winter, which could be very cold. Obviously, with the major economy on the continent being Germany, so heavily reliant on manufacturing and export, if they can't get energy prices down, or heck, they can't turn on the machines, what does that mean for the European economy in general?
Well, this has been something that seems like this issue is finally coming to fruition after really 10, 15 years. I mean, you can go back for a while and talk about find a politician or someone who's saying this is an issue, the reliance on Russian energy that Western Europe has had for a long time. And now it's really finally, it's probably been issues, but it's really becoming a serious issue with their energy prices, 10 times ours right now?
I mean,
for natural gas.
Something crazy like that. I mean, and Courtney, I mean, tell me, what does your sister have to say about just energy prices and just the heat?
Talking about Liz Truss?
Yeah, all that stuff. I mean, that is going on over in the United Kingdom now.
Well, it is. They've had historic highs, and what I can report back is reading an article recently that only 5% of the general population in the UK have air conditioning units, and even those, typically it's like, you know, a window unit that only cools one room. So if you can imagine how hot, I think that they've had highs in the 90s Fahrenheit here, and inside it is just ridiculously sweltering. And I mean, that just makes everybody more irritable. And
it's a good thing it's not 90 degrees Celsius there. That would be
that would
hot.
be
very hot. I mean, close to boiling. Boiling. This podcast is close to boiling, but 90 degrees would be close to boiling, which is, if I'm not mistaken, 100 degrees centigrade. Sam, your thoughts on that?
Sounds about right. Yeah.
So a lot of what y'all are talking about with Russia reducing the amount of access, right, to natural gas.
Apparently, they've already shut down the Nord Stream.
Yeah, they're talking about, we need some parts, and then the part company is saying we've provided you, and it just seems kind of like a convoluted way to say we're going to shut you down.
And part of that, I guess, what I'm assuming, based off what y'all are saying, is due to the conflict in Ukraine and Russia trying to just make a statement.
Yes.
Okay, so we knew this was coming, right?
Yes.
We've known for months, and I understand that it's not reasonable that we think that everyone should have been able to mobilize and drastically change an infrastructure that's been there for years and years. But don't you think it's kind of, I mean, what are you knowledgeable of anything that
like I said,
Europe has done?
Been an issue for at least a decade. I mean, I watched clips as far back as 2005 of people talking about the reliance that Western Europe has.
So what actions have been taking place to get them
the
less
opposite.
reliant? Okay.
Well, the thing is, what's been kind of counterintuitive from someone living thousands of miles away,
Right.
not even speaking any German whatsoever. 9, I think. Yeah, all that stuff.
Very good.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's perfect. Thank
They're
you.
good.
But is having environmental sensibilities that don't match up with your political realities, and by that I mean, everyone over there is worried about Russia, and that's what NATO really is. It's a defense.
It's anti-Russia.
It's anti-Russia. It used to be anti-Soviet Union. Soviet Union broke itself up, took in a lot of the former Soviet states. It's an anti-Russian defense league. I mean, that's what it is, and Moscow knows this. Everyone knows this. So you have NATO, pretty much all of Europe in NATO, to combat Russia. Again, aggravated Russia, you have that, but then you have your environmental sensibilities. You want to shut down zero. You don't want to have
no nuclear.
No nuclear. You don't want to have any coal in Germany. All that stuff. You want to really reduce your greenhouse gases. So you start buying a whole bunch of cleaner burning compared to coal, of course, and oil. Cleaner burning fossil fuels in the form of natural gas, and that comes from Russia. Don't want nuclear because bad stuff happens with nuclear. All that's clean burning. So over the last 10, 15 years, in order to get their environmental sensibilities, feel good about themselves, burning cleaner, they've been importing more and more Russian gas, while still acknowledging that Russia is the potential enemy in the future. It's been sort of nonstop crazy. It'd be almost like giving the Red Chinese a whole bunch of technology.
Yeah.
It'd be almost that crazy.
And outsourcing everything to them.
And outsourcing your manufacturing to the Red Chinese.
That would be awful, wouldn't it? Oh, man.
But it's cheaper.
But, I mean, like you said about the realities of it, the realities are about the timeline of this. And that to me has been the biggest issue of saying whether you want to get on clean energy or not, that's fine.
Yeah.
But to say that's going to happen by whether it's 2030 or 2040, it's pretty unrealistic. And that is part of what has built up all these issues. And then the nuclear part of it's a head scratcher to me.
Well, apparently now Germany is saying we're going to keep these on for a little while longer. But what's head scratching
and burning more coal too,
and burning more coal. But what's head scratching to me is that is nothing but a short-term band-aid, because the people that own these facilities, whatever utility over there, are not going to go out of their way to reinvest massive amounts of money in new coal mines and build out new infrastructure for these things that are already slated for closure, unless they get some sort of mandate or assurances from the government that, hey, we'll give you 10 years, or we'll give you 15 years. And I don't think the Green Party over in the continent, in any country, is going to be willing to go for that. So they're going to put a stopgap measure, hopefully for the winter, to ensure that they don't freeze. Meanwhile, Putin's kind of probably thinking, I can win this war of attrition with the Ukrainians. Eventually, the Americans will stop sending stuff over, and all I've got to do is freeze Germany, the Baltics, and the French out this winter, and then I'm winning. Then
they're trying to
my
win at
hand
something.
wins. Yeah. So,
I mean, that seems to be how the Russians have fought in previous wars.
It seems to be how the Russians have fought.
And,
just basically
we talked
wearing
about
them down.
Things maybe before, as this was starting, if things would change, and it doesn't really seem like that's been the case.
So do you I know, John, you mentioned Warren Buffett and some moves that he had made in his portfolio and how he's investing more in fossil fuels and other options.
Massive amount.
Right. So is it where Germany and other countries in the EU can look at alternatives and be proactive in investing? They're going to have to, right? I mean, if Russia does completely cut off all of their access, I mean, what is their other option? And is there a great potential there for growth in alternative?
You see, Courtney, that is what
options.
a lot of environmentalists and a lot of certain people of certain sort of mindset, they're hoping that that's what this leads to. We're still a long way away from being able to get 100% of our nation's energy demand from the sun, from waves in the sea, and from wind. And the truth is, the amount of space that we would require using today's technology to have all of that, to get all that energy, it would cost just trillions of dollars, if I'm not mistaken, Sam, not just to buy the land, but to buy the parts. Oh, and unfortunately, Courtney, most of our solar panels come from this place across the ocean called China.
And use heavy metals. And
if we do all this stuff, we need to get all these rare earths. We need to get all this metal. That's mining. That's environmentally unfriendly.
Same thing with batteries.
It's the same thing with batteries. It's the same thing with these massive wind turbines. They stick them offshore. They kill all kinds of birds. There's just no way. I mean, truthfully, it's very funny, but I mean, you're kind of giggling there. But
well, because like to your point,
not a bird lover.
I love birds.
I mean, I just envision a bunch of birds flying into the fan. I know that's not funny, but but I mean, yes, if we do something, I mean, it's kind of like being a human in general. We're not gonna just exist and not kill anything. We have to consume, and by no means is that justification of not taking.
Now.
Yeah, well, I know
it's not justification of like
what
not taking care of our planet.
What's
but
next?
if nuclear is the option, you just look at other like up and coming, countries or something like that. Is there like cheaper land or something like that? And yes, there are ramifications of having nuclear, but it's also we shouldn't be reliant on Russia and.
There's not a ton of ramifications from nuclear.
Just storing this stuff.
Yeah, but also, storing it, and then who wants a nuclear plant in their backyard? And you look at
who wants a windmill in their backyard? Who wants a solar panel plant field in their backyard? No one wants any of this stuff.
Prettier than a nuclear plant, but yeah. You're right. I mean, I'll
Okay.
I'll agree.
Water waste treatment facility in your backyard?
I just wonder if there's other.
It's pretty. It looks like a lake.
There's other options, and surely
there.
they've looked at this, right? I mean, I hate to make assumptions, but you would think that they're not just like, oh, well, I guess we're going to have to just do with less.
I don't feel as though it's completely well thought out, and I think it's political sensibilities or wishful thinking really kind of trump common sense in a lot of ways.
And that's it. Again, it goes back
Bureaucracy.
to the misalignment of expectations and the timeline for this.
Yeah.
I mean, we're in a country that our greenhouse, our natural gas, our emissions, that's been going down for a couple decades now.
Yes.
I mean, it is not the U.S. and Western Europe that is really causing the massive amounts of accelerated growth in greenhouse gases.
It's the Chinese.
It's the Chinese and a few other emerging market economies.
And if the Indians ever get to the level that Modi wants to get, Modi has pledged to get India to be a developed nation in a very short period of time. That will only increase their energy usage, which is a fraction of even what China's is.
They're about to be the biggest country in the world in the next year or so.
So that's part of the whole issue. So going back to sort of energy crisis, it is, listen, if someone were to come to me and say, Norris, guess what, buddy? We figured out a way to burn the air or burn salt water. We're just going to do it. No, everything's going to be great. No greenhouse gases. The world's going to cool down, and it's not going to cost you an extra cent. What do you think about that, Tiger?
Sold.
Great.
Yeah, sounds fantastic.
Yeah.
It absolutely sounds fantastic. And there's not going to be any disruption in economic activity. We got that done tomorrow for you, big guy. I don't think there's anyone that wouldn't say, okay, cool.
That doesn't exist.
That's the problem. It doesn't exist.
It doesn't?
It doesn't exist. The infrastructure is not built out for it. Even with EVs, and Dodge is going to kill their muscle cars to make them.
Charger and Challenger.
They're going to kill those. Which I don't know how you have a street beater, a muscle car that doesn't have. That's my making of an engine sound.
No, it's very good.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
bet people
I
thought
learned
we
that a
hit a
lot when I was a
button
kid.
for sound effects.
Yes. But I mean, I don't see how you have a muscle car without an internal combustion engine, but that's a different story altogether. Maybe a topic, Courtney, for another podcast, I
Yes.
guess. But even so, all of these things require massive amounts of energy. All of them, just human consumption in general, requires a massive amount of energy. The Europeans, wanting to be as green as they possibly can, have borrowed or buying all of this energy from the Russians and then arming themselves against the Russians and then putting sanctions against the Russians when the Russians act like Russians, and the Russians are now going to act like Russians do during the wintertime and keep the Germans from heating their homes.
Yeah.
So is it really any wonder, taking this back full circle, is it really any wonder that investors like Warren Buffett or even here at Oakworth Capital Bank are overweighting the U.S. economy, even with all the turmoil that we have here and all of the questionable economic policies that we have here in the United States. When you take a look at the remainder of the developed world, the U.S. is almost a slam dunk investment in my estimation. Sam, your thoughts?
Well, and again, it goes back to just comparing it. I mean, that's what you're saying is you look at us compared to these other places, and it's going to be a lot colder in Western Europe than it's going to be here.
It's going to be cold.
Very cold.
Cold.
I don't like it.
I don't like it either. What do you think about that, Courtney?
I guess I'd be buying some heaters.
Some heaters.
Electric heaters.
The amount of Google searches in Western Europe for firewood has skyrocketed.
Which, by the way, is the least clean form of fuel.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and, just house fires in general. Immediately, I'm like, more people are going to die from fires.
That's how she's killing people.
Yeah, she's talking murdering people and house fires.
That's not how I said it, John.
Grin that came across,
kind of glint.
Her eyes got as bright as a house fire.
I guess with, heaters, using electricity, those also can cause house
The thing
fires.
that stinks about it is the colder this winter is, the more difficult it's going to be on the dairy cows over in Europe. So we'll be exporting a lot more fluid milk over to the United Kingdom. And you know where this is going, Sam?
I think so.
Which means the cost of creamer here in the United States.
I was about to say, I have no idea where you're going with this.
The cost of creamer here in the United States is going to be going up to astronomical levels.
Worth every cent.
And the one in particular, with the peppermint crop going down and
peppermint crop.
Yeah, the peppermint crop in
Black Forest, wherever
it's from, it's going down. Courtney is going to be
broke after buying all my creamer.
All your creamer, and then also the porcine agricultural complex up in Massachusetts. They're shutting it down, as well as out in California. There's just not going to be enough.
Spreading
pork
fake news now.
There's just not going to be enough pork to go around, and
no sausage this winter.
No sausage. None of the sausage Courtney's family likes this winter. So
bleak winter in the.
It's going to be a bleak winter. It's weird how events over in Eastern Europe and the German energy policy ends up really kind of screwing the Truss family when it comes to the creamer and the sausage.
Let's keep going full circle. If the conflict in Ukraine just stopped tomorrow, world peace, it stops, does this go away? I know long term it's still an issue, but do you think that Russia would open back up?
As soon as the Western powers, if we can want to call them powers, being cynical on that,
right,
want to get rid of their sanctions on the Kremlin. Yeah, for the most part. I think so. You get some speculators out of the markets, get the flow of energy going again. Yeah.
I think they'll like to twist the knife, though, a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't think they'll,
You won't be super fast.
Clean, just get a last little jab.
I think what will happen is you'll get some of the speculators out of the market. Prices will go down a little bit. Natural gas prices right now in Western Europe, if I'm not mistaken, are through the roof.
Yeah.
Even more so than ours. Putin being Putin.
Yeah.
He's not going to turn the valves all the way completely back on. He's going to make them pay for punishing them, and that's the way the Russians have always behaved, and that's the way they will continue to behave. There's no reason to think otherwise. So that's what I think will probably happen. We'll avert an energy crisis, but it's going to be a little bit more expensive for Mr. and Miss Schmidt in Germany to heat their home this wintertime.
You need to get your cousin Liz Truss on it.
Yeah, I'm working on it.
I'm lost.
The possible PM in Britain.
Oh, really?
Her last name is
that's right.
Truss.
That's right. I don't think there's any
Took you longer to get that than me with the cows and the creamer.
Yeah, show myself to be a little dense, almost as dense as the cows out there. Well, guys, thank you so much for listening. We always love to hear from you and all. And you can always reach out to us at tradingperspectives@oakworth.com. Sam's looking at me like you've said this 1,000 times so you can't remember it. Or you can leave us a review at the podcast outlet of your choice. As always, if you're interested in reading more or hearing more of what we have to say or how we think, you can always go to oakworth.com and take a look underneath the Thought Leadership tab for all kinds of exciting information. With that, we're going to give you all last chance to say something on this exciting topic.
That's all I got.
That's it, John.
That's all I've got today, too. Y'all take care.